Hi Mark, thanks for joining us today. If you could just tell people who you are and what you do.
I'm Mark Skinner. I'm Managing Director of Scotsbridge, UK and Singapore. And we're a company that assists UK businesses develop within Southeast Asia regarding strategies and their growth ambitions.
Fantastic. And I know you from John Bell Pipeline. Before that, what was your early career at?
My background, I started in the very early days being an apprentice mechanic for Mercedes-Benz in the city. But
In Aberdeen?
In Aberdeen, and knew that quite early on there was no money to be made in repairing cars. So in my very early days, I actually joined John Bell Pipeline as a young recruit at 17 years of age.
As an apprentice, or?
Nothing as grand as being an apprentice, effectively just a dog's body. And I had a few years there. And then I suppose back in the day there was no such thing as head hunting, but I was approached by an American company called Keystone Valves to look after the Scottish market for them. They had a large factory in Drummoyne and Glasgow, and it was probably the 8 years I spent there were very informative, and working with a large organisation, a company that was not from the UK, but the camaraderie that you had with the team, it was a joyful time for me.
Was that the culture there?
Pretty much, it was the culture of inclusion and wanting to really everybody to succeed rather than have any prima donnas. It was a very enjoyable time, and at a time when the oil and gas, distilling, paper industry were probably in its peaks in the sort of the mid 80s, late 80s. So if you didn't get one order, you go to the next. It was
plenty.
It was in an abundance.
Yeah.
But I spent 8 years there, and after that, I then moved to John Bell Pipeline to start a valve division for them, and then kind of from there on, its history, as in the company was sold to myself and Brian Thompson, and we kind of took it to the next stage.
So when you were headhunted to go to Keystone, how did they know about you? And what were you headhunted to be? What was your job?
It was to be the regional sales manager for them.
Okay.
And again, it's similar to as of today. It's people you know, and it's sometimes people who you know. But people that I'd previously worked alongside had moved to Keystone, and they had said they're looking for a young guy to help them. And
good company to work for.
It was a great company to work for. Yeah.
Did you move to Glasgow?
No, it was something that I could do from being based in Aberdeen, but I spent a lot of time in Glasgow.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time at the factory. So it was...
and they manufactured valves?
Yeah, they manufactured valves. They were a Houston-based business, but they manufactured valves in Drummoyne, just near Govan.
Yeah.
And at its peak, it probably employed about 300 people, but sadly no longer there.
Yeah. And then, so you went then back to John Bell Pipeline and started a valve department. So what was John Bell Pipeline before you left?
John Bell Pipeline was a stockholding distributor of piping materials, effectively dumb steel for all the sectors in oil and gas and distilling, paper. And it was decided that a valve division was something that the company needed. So again, a time of bounty, a good time to consider it. So that's what I was tasked to do.
Did they offer you that, or did you propose that?
No, I was offered it because I had done a successful job of assisting Keystone develop within the northeast of Scotland.
So for John Bell Pipeline, you went after the same business?
In part, yes, but also aligned with a company that was in competition to Keystone.
Yeah.
So they may have been part of the appointment at some point and the influencer.
Yeah.
But a few years on, for sure, it was a successful outcome for them and for me, because I learned so much in that time.
Yeah. And then you progressed, and then you mentioned that you then purchased John Bell Pipeline.
Yeah, well, John Bell Pipeline was is a well-known business in Aberdeen at that time, going back to the sort of the late 70s as it started up. It was owned by individual John Bell, who had effectively grown the business to a certain level and was wanting to have a change in direction, slow down, enjoy life. So it was offered to the managers within John Bell Pipeline.
MBO at that time?
It was
A sort of MBO?
It was a sort of MBO, but it was going to be maybe a few of us, but it ended up myself and Brian Thompson that bought it. So what we wanted to do in buying that company was that we knew that we could take it to the next stage, and that is by, investing heavily in regards stock and for the future. So that's how young guys, we knew that we could do it. Maybe did we know exactly how to do it? We just kind of went on our gut, really.
How many people worked for JBP then?
At the time, there would have been probably about 30 then, but it's in my tenure and Brian's tenure, it probably been at 60.
Wow.
It would have been.
Doubled it.
Yeah.
And obviously you then sold the company later on, but what was the process for buying it at John Bell?
Well, the process for us is that we were in a position where we probably didn't have the funds. So we were in a position to make payment on a gradual basis, which was extremely kind of the previous owner. But we rented the space from the owner, John, which allowed us to make that transition into ownership. So we were a big believer in paying our bills very quickly, paying our debts very quickly. Any profits that were generated in the business, and they were substantial at certain times for sure, but sometimes not so pretty, where we all know within the oil and gas sector we have cycles.
Yeah.
But in the main, we were able to pay for the business fairly quickly, and it was then that we decided that we were going to move from our original location in Stonywood in Dice near the airport to a new premises that we would own, the company would own in Inverurie. And though myself and Brian have moved on, is that's still where the company has its base,
Yeah.
in Inverurie. So we sold that business in 2012 to John Bell Pipeline's largest supplier, and we then stayed on for a period of time to aid the transition.
And when you talked about the industry being a cyclic industry, how many of them did you experience, or did you experience any real tough financial situations during your ownership of John Bell Pipeline?
Yeah, well, we've it's probably no different from many owners of businesses in Aberdeen at the time when there's a real dip. Is that probably in my lifetime to date, I've probably seen 4 serious cycles, with one in particular where we had made the decision that there would be no redundancies in the business, because we felt that that was not something that we wanted to do, and there were other options available. So effectively, that's when you don't pay yourself.
Yeah.
You don't reap any benefit. You have to take a wee bit of the pain. But one of the things, if individuals were to start up their business, is that if they don't have certain sacrifices, I would really question, should they be doing it?
Yeah.
So it's that's how I would view
Building something.
even now in 2025, is that it's if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and not everybody's doing it.
No, even the people who are doing it are struggling.
Yeah.
So you went from 30 people to 60 people. How did you build the kind of culture or leadership did you have there in order to drive and grow that business?
I mean, our culture was definitely grow your own. I think we were very proud of the staff retention that we had at John Bell Pipeline, and it was definitely by looking at everything from 16 to 18-year-olds that maybe don't want to go into further education, and I don't think that we ever employed a graduate from memory.
No. You said a different kind of view on it, more bringing kids in who were more hands-on, or?
Yeah, I think it was giving opportunities to those that maybe didn't get the opportunity, and I mean, I think we were often at the end viewed as a company with its base in Inverurie, and we were keen to support young men and women wanting to come into the industry, but locally.
Yeah.
So again, from the surrounding area of Inverurie, we had staff from all over the Shire, but I think we were good at selecting the right people. I think that Brian and myself had a good eye for, in the main, good people that are going to be there. So it's not uncommon to have had staff that are still there, I believe, 30 plus years.
Yeah, and is that a big part of it, finding the right people or the recruitment, especially for a small business or a growing business?
I think probably through the cycle of ownership of it, John Bell, we would have maybe had to try a bit harder sometimes to offer people to stay.
Was that location?
I think it was probably because there may be somebody else offering
More.
A bit more, and especially in the sort of late 90s, early noughties, I think maybe a lot of people would remember that as being quite difficult to retain staff. But I think money is not the sole thing for individuals to stay in a business. It may have changed slightly now, but I view as that they're interested in, their future. If they like working for the company, they still want to work for the business. They might go and work for another company for a few dollars more, but they hate it. And that had happened, is that we're some of those, that very few that did leave, they came back. Yeah, so is that, the grass is not always greener, but I think you've got to consider you have to give the staff members, the ones that you want to nurture, give them something to work at and aim at.
Yeah.
Have a career path. And I think, at the moment I hear stories of career paths, not necessarily the way forward for individuals. Retention within business is quite difficult. I don't think really that was a big issue for us at the time.
And do you think that's more financially driven now, or?
I think it's possibly there's less loyalty from both sides, and I think that could be quite a political thing. Every company's different, but I think at the moment, everything seems to be instantaneous, is that everybody wants to, to be the managing director, just come out of uni, and we work in different parts of the world. I don't think it's any different in Aberdeen than it is in Malaysia or in the USA or wherever. I think it's a global thing.
Yeah. And then in 2012 you sold to Bianco Group. What was the decision to sell? Or did they chap on your door, or did you go there looking to sell?
I think these things happen is that we weren't looking. I think if we ever felt that it was something that would come across our desk, because we would always look at it. But no, we didn't look. But I think at the time it was probably came at a good time to take the company to the next level. One thing that I think that we were so attractive as a business is that we had diversified and internationalized our business before companies were actually doing it of our size. I mean, we were...
Everybody's trying to do it now.
Everybody's trying to do it now, but we were doing that in the late 90s.
Yeah. And what was Bianco Group? Why was John Bell Pipeline attractive to them?
I think it's because the portfolio of the clients, the sectors that we were in, the regions global that we were in, were something of interest to the Bianco Group, which was actually NTS, the UK part of Bianco that bought us. But I think they were really looking for a footprint in Scotland within the pipe and valve scene. And we were probably one of the last independents to focus on, because we were probably the largest independent company of our type doing what we did in the UK.
And by the time you did do that, how big was your valve department that you came in and built?
It was considerable. I mean, it was.
Was JBP known for valves by that point, or was it still a metal?
I definitely think it was seen as the complete scope of piping, valves, control systems. It was very much, and depending on whatever year it may be, but projects were a big part of that, and again, it depends on which part of the world that we were working in. But Algeria was a big part of the business that JBP was winning, and near to myself and Brian exiting the business. International was a big part.
And was that through clients that you knew from Aberdeen, like operators, EPCs here that was client and they were working on jobs abroad, or were you winning work actually in these countries?
We adopted from pretty much day one the same philosophy was follow your clients.
Yeah. This industry is completely built on that, isn't it? That's why there's Aberdonians everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's why there are that you walk into a pub in Baku or in Houston or whatever, and there's always going to be somebody or somebody that you know of. But yeah, follow. I think it's good advice is to follow your clients, because they know you, and you're going to be given an opportunity. And if you're in some godforsaken part of the world where the supply chain is not great, is that those companies are going to look for people that that can deliver, and they
know their systems.
Yeah. So it's something that we followed, from day one. Yeah.
And then going back to the Bianco Group coming in, what was the process for the merger or acquisition?
It was quite simple. It was protracted, but it was quite simple, and it was just a process of, appropriate due diligence.
Timely?
Yes, I think the timeline would probably have been about 12 months from start to finish. But that's not unusual.
That's normal.
That's not, I mean, that, there's other companies that we know that can be far more protracted than that.
Yeah.
But equally, it can be done in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But that's quite unusual.
And when that was done and dusted, you were still with Bianco Group, you were still with John Bill Pipeline. So what was your job then? What was your job before and what was your job then?
Well, I was sales director for John Bill Pipeline and one of the owner shareholders of the business. I retained that title after the business was sold to stay on for a period of time, and then I kind of graduated into the managing director role, and then assisting NTS and Bianco look at the internationalisation of some of their businesses with a Southeast Asian focus.
And when you took out that role, or when you sold the company, did you have an agreement that you'd have to remain with Bianco Group for so long?
Yes, and that's a standard procedure. Yeah, it depends on what the agreements may be, but yeah, both sides agreed to that.
Yeah. And then for there, obviously, you're new with Scotsbridge. You've done an international thing for Bianco Group. What were you expected to do there? What was your role?
Effectively to identify where the opportunities might lie and how that could be transcended across the businesses within the Bianco Group. Because though I was still MD with John Bell, I was looking at gathering information for the owners of Bianco as such.
And did that give you the idea or the vision for Scotsbridge?
I think in some ways it would have assisted, but I think I've always been keen to assist and develop individuals and businesses pre-purchase at John Bill Pipeline. And I've been involved with various mentoring schemes through Scottish Enterprise and Chamber of Commerce, and there was always a consideration of, could we, let's pass something on, passing on, bringing forward as such for other individuals and businesses. So I've always had that. I suppose come the ending of my tenure at John Bell, I thought, well, is there a way to monetize this? And that's where we set up Scotsbridge in Singapore to help UK businesses consider and develop in Southeast Asia, because we felt from our experience in country or in region is that a lot of businesses were not at the races, and that they really needed some assistance and guidance in how to make a successful business.
And we're seeing that more and more now. We go to ADIPEC, OTC events around the world, and we see a lot more companies just turning up for the first time, no idea what to expect, no customer focus, no structure. They just think we need to get out there and find work. So how does Scotsbridge help companies like that? Or what is who's an ideal client for Scotsbridge?
I think we focus solely on SME owner-managed businesses up to small, larger businesses, if that makes any sense. So probably about up to about a 40 million turnover business that might, depending on how much staff, you could have anything from 10 to 200. But we're looking at businesses that have the real potential for growth in Southeast Asia, and we focus solely on the ASEAN region, the 10 countries. But
why that area?
Because we'd identified that 10 years ago as the easier footprint for companies to get traction within Southeast Asia, other than the likes of South Korea, Japan and China.
They're huge.
It's immense, and where you have the top 5 countries within the ASEAN is Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Singapore, which are also very oil and gas focused,
Yeah.
engineering focused. So it was an ideal location for companies to want to develop into. 8 years ago, we had to get that message across, and we were slowly, in the first 12, 18 months, we managed to get that message across. What we're seeing now is with the pressures on businesses within those sectors in the UK, is that heading east is an area that is really happy to partner and work with speciality companies in the energy sector and the energy mix sector.
We've seen companies now, work for some companies where they've tried to internationalize into Houston or in Norway or even into the Middle East, and some companies have burnt years and money and got nowhere in these. So how is the ASEAN region different?
Well, I think it's the approach. I mean, we will have some preliminary discussions with the client to really see what do they want to get out of this, and it's probably changed from when we first started. Even pre-COVID, the region was looking to do a lot of things on its own, but with assistance from Western businesses. I think post-COVID, that's accelerated even more, and that companies wanting to work within the ASEAN, Southeast Asia. We don't work in the USA and parts of Europe, but if we did, we would probably say regionalization is key. Regionalization, making it, dealing with businesses 9,000 kilometers away from your home base is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And there will be those that will argue with that, and we totally accept that. But what we've seen with companies that we've assisted and developed, but they've had the passion and the vision to really go for it, as in they do it in a step-by-step basis, but ultimately they will have their own facility or their own representation within country. Those are the companies that we have seen historically that succeed.
Yeah.
Working from your home base in the UK, there are going to be those that will argue, yes, it does work, but we're looking at long term. I think we're looking at more that we want our clients to have real-time success in repeat business and growing and employing nationals in the countries that they're wanting to work.
And how do you achieve that then? It's not just you. You mentioned at the start you're Mark Skinner of Scotsbridge, UK, so you've got other people and you've got other places in Asia.
We have our Southeast Asia HQs in Singapore, which is managed by Don, my colleague Don Wang. Don's Singaporean, proud Singaporean, and he manages that facility and the network. We have a small number of staff members located in Singapore, and we have a team of contractors that work for us regionally, which effectively are the hub of identifying appropriate companies for our clients to potentially partner with regionally. So if we've got clients that are wanting to look at the Indonesian hydrocarbons market, we will look for companies that are within the sphere of our client. But ultimately, what we're doing is by a real due diligence process. So we drill deep and we identify the best prospects by doing that research, looking at the market, speaking with the end user, looking at the companies that are using the services of the companies that we're maybe going to approach on our client's behalf, to identify who the best prospects are going to be for a long-term relationship between client and their in-country partner.
And culturally, there must be massive difference between, for instance, an Aberdeen-based company and a company in Singapore or Thailand or whatever. So, do you guys guide the clients on the nuances within different countries?
Yeah, it's a big part of our offering, through the process. So, from commencement, that starts right up until the completion of the project, where we've had the client immersed in the market, for company visits within region. But right from start to finish, we are drip feeding information and effectively giving them homework on considerations. What we as much as that we have in Europe, that in the UK to Germany to France, we're all very different. Well, it's exactly the same in Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia. That they would be viewed as all Southeast Asian nations, but they're all different in their own way. The way that they do business is often quite different.
What about markets there? Is there certain areas which are big for oil and gas or big for renewables? Or
I think we're seeing that from an oil and gas perspective, generally the ASEAN region's buoyant at this time. But within certain areas where you have geothermal, with the likes of Indonesia and the Philippines, where you would have the renewable sector, which is still in its infancy in comparison to, let's say, Europe, but it is happening. It is gonna happen, especially with East Malaysia and Vietnam, and Thailand also has aspirations, but it's slower. Because for this conversation or not, but it's not hydrocarbons is not demonized. Not yet. Yeah, I'm sure it will happen, but at the moment it is very it's very buoyant across the board. It's encouraged because, again, it's going to fund the green transition.
Yeah. And so basically what Scotsbridge is doing are facilitating market entry for companies.
Yeah, market entry. I mean, that's really what we do, but but with some real process involved, and not just based on a company that has been inherited by a business part of the group. That sometimes that is just not the right fit. So what we aim to do is find the best business for our client to work with, but considering it a long-term investment.
And is that part of the experience you built up at John Bell Pipeline, where you've had to go and take that company and internationalize it, like you said, in the 90s, early on before other people? Did you learn these skills at that point?
I think everything that was learned in the formative years have came through to, as we are in 25 at the moment. It's I mean, it's your early years definitely do form your. But I also would say is that, as I would like to think I've helped other companies and individuals especially, is that I was one of those individuals that was helped by, we would call them mentors now, but they were journeymen and journeywomen then. It would have been a different scene, but I had a lot of folks that had gave me their time, and I'm very thankful for that. So paying it forward is something I believe in.
Good. And then as far as leadership, building businesses, that's what you've done since God knows how long, I don't know, since your days in Glasgow.
Yeah.
But what would be your advice now, or what would would be your key things now you would say, right, that's a guaranteed, or that's a must, that's how I would lead a team, or that's how I'd run a company?
I would say that whatever your product or service is try and make it as niche as possible. Okay. Try and make it as something that is, if it is possible, without as much competition, but also by solving a problem. I think customers love companies that can solve problems for them.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily look at starting a company that you want to flip it in 5 years' time, because I think
Do you would have passion or interest?
your integrity will be maybe questioned, or maybe, I think you've got to be passionate about what you're doing. And even to this day, myself and Dawn are passionate about what we do. And when we stop being passionate, that's when we stop what we're doing. But we get excited about our clients' success, and be it a small win, big win, it doesn't really matter. But if we can see that we've been able to help them, but ultimately they do it themselves, that's a huge win for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on the Northeast as a whole right now? What do you think of the future for Aberdeen or the Shire area as we transition?
I think we've shot the bolt too soon on hydrocarbon demonisation. I understand, the politics, the geopolitics, the environment, but I think there is a better way to do it than the way we're doing it at the moment, and it's just too fast, too soon, and I think some of us do remember the ghost towns, the mines, and whatever. I don't think we want to see Aberdeen being seen in that light, and I hope that with renewables being the way forward, is that maybe the decision making can be accelerated in regards new projects, legislation being a bit swifter, so that the void that's going to be filled is that renewables can
take that,
pick it up. Yeah.
Yes. And then you mentioned mentorship and paying it forward and paying it back and everything else. And I think I was sent to you by Scottish Enterprise in 2011 or something like that, 2012. So what made you get into the mentorship side? And you're not just involved with them, you've been involved with lots of...
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved with them. I mean, I was involved with Young Enterprise for a long time, which is an initiative for academies and high schools to get the young adults to start a business. I think the entrepreneurship is a passion, but I think we often use that word too much, and
Very common.
It's pretty common, and it's maybe lost some of its meaning. But I think being in business, being the boss, being the owner, whatever, the founder seems to be the popular thing now. The founder has, you don't have to be a nasty bad person to be top of the tree.
Yeah.
I think having your own values and what you want to achieve, is that's what I've tried to instill in people is be nice on your way to the top, because you don't know who you might meet on your way down.
Yeah.
And I think Aberdeen, or this sector, has had a few individuals that maybe fall into the you know what I mean.
They found it harder coming back down.
They found it harder coming back down, and I think the ones that enthuse and then develop, those are the ones that I think have got a bit of a legacy, and there's plenty within in the northeast of Scotland.
Yeah.
They far outnumber the bad ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that, what would be your advice then to somebody starting a business? And I know that's kind of a very fucking fairy question, because it's so wide, because it can be any type of business. But say a business in the energy sector, supply chain.
Probably get try and get as close to your potential customers as you can by finding out where are the gaps and what are you missing, and what do you really want, rather than I think you should buy this because it's wonderful, just because you think it's wonderful. Previously, had dalliances with other businesses that wanted some assistance, but they get so consumed by their own greatness that they feel everybody has the same opinion, but it's just not the case. So I think understanding what businesses require, what's going to make a difference, what's going to save costs or efficiencies, and whatever it may be, but do your research before you jump in. That's would be one of my pieces of my advice.
And for Mark Skinner and for Scotsbridge, what's the future?
Continue as on year, doing what we're doing, regards developing Scotsbridge within the ASEAN region. This year, we ventured to Australia to look at the Australian market for Australian businesses looking at Southeast Asia, and the feedback we've had from that has been pretty positive. So that's something that we're going to grow.
Well, we know there's a few companies going there in September to Asia Oil and Gas for Australia. There's a few companies coming to Aberdeen for offshore Europe in September as well for Australia.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Australian market is very similar in some way to our own, that heavily reliant on hydrocarbons at some, or in mining in their case as well. But I found that my trip to Australia the first time, it was, rather than just being a nice place, it was a good place to do business, and a lot of integrity there. So quite a few parallels with Aberdeen. But yes, many companies going to Malaysia in September for the oil and gas show from Australia and from the UK. And I think it's because of political decision within the United Kingdom that UK companies are looking at that part of the world more. And it's not just Southeast Asia; it's other places. And
just on a personal note, then how do you manage personal life, work life with so much traveling back and forth to Asia all the time?
Just get on with it and stop moaning.
Yeah,
I think
is that what your family say?
Well, there may be a different response to that, but I think what happens is that they get accustomed to you not being there, and that's been.
And it's understood because it's part of the job.
It's part of the job. It's so I think for such a long time, and there was times that I was never at home, even when I wasn't traveling, because owning a business is no picnic sometimes.
Long days.
So that it's long days, early mornings and long nights, and yes, there's the violins for you're all right, you're the boss, whatever, but there's the bits that you don't see. So sometimes I would say you've got to take time out for yourself, and with some of the mentoring we've had, I've said to you, you've got to slow down sometimes. So, but
it's something I'm interested in.
It's just totally something you ignore anyway. Don't know why I bother. But but you do have to have something for yourself, and I know you have other interests to keep you occupied. But have something outside business to keep and whatever that may be. If it's your golf or your running, your jogging, your football, your whatever it may be, have something. Maybe volunteering. Have something that's out with, because you can't be too consumed.
Just to take your mind away.
Yeah, and have thinking time. It's just having that time. Sometime, for me, it's the morning. About a blue sky thinking time. Where it does help you, maybe not be so grumpy or make that bad decision because of the mood you're in.
Yeah. Perfect. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny.